Hi, everybody. Welcome to supposedly spring in Rochester, but it was like 20, felt like -2 yesterday. And we have our Zoomster who's trying to solve cold fusion, so he might be on, he might not today.
Hello.
You can't see, but he's got stripes on. But the weather does have a factor here. I'm very, very happy to have a tremendous artist on today, but weather plays a factor in because she had a great show here, but it was also in my top 5 of worst driving shows ever, and we are very thrilled to have Marissa Mulder all the way from New York City, which is easy because we're on Zoom. Hi, Marissa.
Hi there. Great to be here.
So you remember the show at Love and Cup, and I have to just keep talking about that. It's like in my top 5. It was a great show. You did the Tom Waits show, but my car bounced getting there basically on the snow.
Oh my goodness.
But Tom Cohen told me you had to like go to Canandaigua afterwards. This was a long time ago, so.
Yes, no, and I'm from Syracuse, so I think we headed back to Syracuse, but that was crazy weather. Just typical upstate.
It was well worth it since I survived, and we had a good crowd. We're used to it up here. It just gets to be too much. I mean, you're used to it, obviously, being in the wind tunnel itself too. Your weather's pretty bad.
Yes,
so this is like going like good talking just about weather, but we're talking about, how did all this start for you? Can you just tell us a little bit?
How did it all start? Well, so yeah, I come from Syracuse, New York, so I'm used to the weather and the snow and the cold. But I've loved to sing since I was, oh goodness, probably 3 or 4 years old. And I always had it in my mind that I wanted to move to New York City. I don't know what age that started, but I did visit the city as a kid with my family, and I just thought it was such an exciting place. And I always said I wanted to move to New York City and sing. And I studied voice as a kid, and I did all of the musicals and shows in high school, and on to college. I studied musical theater at SUNY Geneseo, and I did indeed come to New York City, and I was auditioning for musical theater shows, but I really just wanted to get up and sing. I was sort of discouraged by the audition process. You don't get to sing very long, and you wait in really long lines, and you get told no a lot. So I just wanted to create my own shows, and thanks to a fellow singer, also from Syracuse, she sort of introduced me to the world of cabaret here in New York City. And I started going to a lot of great shows and realizing that these singers were really just choosing so many different kinds of material by so many different kinds of writers, whether it was jazz or the Great American Songbook or more contemporary music. And that's what kind of got me going with this idea of using some more contemporary writers.
I would say you're both eclectic and daring in what you do in terms of who you pick. That's what I thought. And also for me, New York, being a music person, I got to the Beacon Theater. And for me, that was like going to a shrine.
Yeah.
It was just great.
That's such a great place. I know. It's an exciting place. And luckily it seems like, things are coming back as we kind of wind down from COVID a little bit. So
you'll find we jump around on this too a little. So you're going along, you're motoring along. Then COVID hits, and we figured it'll be over in a month. We didn't realize it. How did, as a performer and somebody out touring and everything, doing shows, how did it affect you in terms of also your creativity? Because I do know some of my friends, like I keep making the joke, I was going to be really creative, right, do everything. I could barely do my laundry. Now, I had some friends who did 3 or 4 albums worth of material while they were locked up. Other people painted their houses. I was lazy, though. But how did it affect you as an artist?
No, yeah, it affected me in a big way. It was really tough. It could be really depressing at times, but luckily just the internet and social media and Facebook, I started doing, I have a piano here in my apartment in Queens. It's an upright piano. It was a gift, which was an incredible gift. So two of my favorite piano players that I work with most often would come over here to my apartment and we would do Facebook live shows. We would do shows around Christmas or Valentine's Day, St. Patrick's Day shows, any reason for a show. And I did a show on my birthday.
I watched it.
Oh, you did?
February 10th?
February 6th.
Leave me alone, I'm old.
Close. But that was such
Close.
a nice way to stay connected, and my family and friends from all over the U.S. Could tune in, so that really kept me going. And then I did create a show during COVID. I created a show of all John Prine songs, which
we'll be talking about. I know it's coming up.
Yeah, so that was a COVID creation. With my pianist, John Weber. And we first did that on Facebook Live and have since done it in real theaters. So it was, it was up and down, but I tried to just keep plugging along and staying as creative as I could.
I had, around here, it's amazing, like in terms of Rochester, you can find a lot of music and like people like me who go on the scene, you can, all different kinds. During COVID, I would have a calendar. It would be every day would be a streaming show I'd watch. It's like my friend Alyssa, my friend Meg, your occasional shows, other people occasional shows. The only thing is, how is doing the show without live feedback though a little? Because I know like Hayes Carl would do them, but he would say, okay, I have like really like OCD and stuff. I have to really watch out for the comments because I won't play. So how did you, in terms of playing and not have a live audience, you just sort of, you knew we were out there basically?
Yeah, it was strange at first, but luckily, like both of my regular piano players, their names are Bill or John, we have like a fun repartee. So that kind of, just having them with me made it sort of just kind of fun and in the moment. And then for me, with the Facebook shows, yeah, when I was done with a song, I loved sort of coming towards the camera and reading the comments and kind of like giving shout outs to people. That made it a little more personal for me, but it was strange getting used to just the silence, no applause for me. Oh, how sad. So that was a hard thing to adjust to.
I would freak out like my friend Linda did one, and she's like, oh, our friend Rob's on. Oh, he just did a group watch. Like, oh, he's me. I just want to be anonymous, watch the show.
I know. Well, so then you better not come to my Facebook shows. Because I'll probably, if I see if you comment, I'll talk back to you. But
well, I always write inane comments though, so it's like something like that. But I realized something, and I know what it is, but I've never really known the definition. What exactly is cabaret? How would you describe it?
Yeah, how would I describe it? I describe it as sort of typically an intimate setting, like a smaller theater or a dinner club, a nightclub, where the artist just kind of puts together some kind of evening, whether it's a mix of different writers, whether it's one particular writer, whether it's a theme, whether it's about a specific subject or a completely personal show. I think of it as songs and stories kind of shared in a really intimate setting, as opposed to like a big theater or a big Broadway show. It's sort of like the singer is kind of right there and kind of singing directly to the people that are listening.
You would
That's
picture
how
like the
I
dark
define
room and everything, the lights, people sitting around. Back in the old days, it'd always be smoking a cigarette because it was always the old days. There's a drink, the lights are low, then there's jazz music, then you talk and tell a story. That type of thing.
And it just feels very much like, like you're sort of, I love going to shows where I feel like I'm just kind of in the artist's living room, like you're just right there and you really get to know the performer, and there's mistakes that happen, and there's, you're just right in the thick of it. It's, that's how I would describe cabaret.
Now, how what were some of the artists that influenced you when you were coming up listening to this? Starting being, I want to do this, but I love these artists.
Sure. Well, I starting from a young age in Syracuse, I grew up around the corner from my grandmother and my grandfather, and they were a big part of my childhood and big influences on me musically. My grandpa loved jazz. He loved Ella Fitzgerald and Billy Eckstine, Frank Sinatra, Sarah Vaughan, and I really liked that stuff as a kid, and I loved being with my grandpa. So I loved listening to those artists with him. I loved Judy Garland as a kid. I just thought she sang, even as a little kid, I think I recognized that she sang with so much feeling and emotion and really understood the words that she was singing about. And then when I came to the city, I saw many different wonderful cabaret artists. There's one man that I love named Steve Ross, and I saw him at the Algonquin Hotel at the Oak Room, which is now closed, unfortunately. And I just loved, he would just sit at the piano and sing and play and tell these most incredible stories about like writers like Cole Porter, just information I had never known before about these songwriters. And another singer is Maud Maggart, who is actually Fiona Apple's half sister.
Oh, wow.
She's in Los Angeles now, but she's done a lot of cabaret work. And I saw her at the Algonquin Hotel too, and I just was mesmerized by her. Very beautiful, earthy woman singing all kinds of stuff. A lot of older songs, a lot of Stephen Sondheim, a lot of ballads, which I love. I love ballads. And I just was so taken by her stage presence, her shows, her style, and that kind of really made me want to do that, made me want to do what she was doing. So
when I come to New York, I always stay at the Royalton Hotel, which happens to be across the street from the Algonquin. And for me, my sense of history, the old Algonquin Round Table, Dorothy Parker, Robert Benchley. It's just, I'd love to go in there and see the ghosts walking around at night. Amazing history of the place.
It is. And the Oak Room was such a special, they've kind of, they redid the whole thing, and it's kind of a shame because it was a really special, magical little room where a lot of wonderful people performed. Like that.
But I always
it's a great place.
You seem like you, from what I've seen and watched of you, you take things, you make them your own though, which is really cool. It's not like I don't call them tributes because you take things, but you put your own spin on them.
Well, that means so much to me. Thank you so much.
Now, we don't really do research here. As long as I know the guest's name, consider us, that's our research. But I think, did you do a Lennon and McCartney thing, or am I completely wrong? Can you tell us a little bit? Wow!
No, I did. And I'm actually, I hope to come back to Rochester at some point. I'm going to be doing the Lennon McCartney show. It's called I'll Follow the Sun. And
not here lately, but
yeah, right. I'm trying to manifest the sunshine. I'm going to be bringing that to Syracuse, New York, actually on Saturday, May 21st.
We'll make sure at the end too to tell everybody where they can catch you when they don't want to.
Yes. Yeah, and it's at this place called the Listening Room 443 on Burnett Ave in Syracuse. I've never been there, but
I've heard of it. Amazingly, for Syracuse, I saw Alice Cooper there at the big place. But every time I go out there, my friends Maybird and Michaela Davis played at Funk and Waffles. I don't even know if it's still there. But
I think it is.
Michaela played at a place. It wasn't Syracuse. It was it was in DeWitt, where it was like right out of Syracuse. It was like the song Stretch of Road. And it was like a theater, so technically I wasn't in Syracuse, I was in DeWitt.
You were into it.
Yeah.
I wonder, I'm sure I know it. I don't know off the top of my head, but that sounds really
I
cool.
can't remember anything, so it's like it was a
That's all
theater. It
right.
was like a theater, it was weird. You went down the one road when you got off the exit. It was like just a mini theater district with restaurants and a theater
Wow.
and everything else.
I'll have to think about that.
I think I'll shoot you a message. I have horrible like short-term memory.
No worries.
But the thing about the Beatles is like obviously there's like a timelessness to them. I don't think, good music is good music, obviously. We're talking jazz. You get something from the 20s, 30s, it holds up. Why? Because it's good. And the Beatles are around, and actually, think back, by the mid 60s, they were being written off like Herman's Hermits were going to surpass them.
Yeah.
And then during the 70s, I think there was a K-Tel Beatles record or something. But over time, good music just holds. And I think that's the thing with them. Yeah, some people will say, we still talk about them. Why? Because they were really good.
Absolutely. And I found that my Lennon McCartney show has been one of the most marketable shows I've done, just because everybody knows who they are, and I've taken the shows to a good amount of places kind of around the United States. I was in a venue in Indiana, the Hotel Carmichael, and I was really struck by just the range of people at the show. There were a lot of middle-aged people, older people, younger people, and that's what I love about the Beatles. Like, they're still so relevant. They still are getting, really young people are still hip to their songs and become big fans. And you're right, it is timeless. And I love their stuff because I think for the most part it's uplifting. It's really uplifting messages in their songs.
And I think we can relate to them in a lot of like friendships we've had and everything, where you have this close group and you get apart and all like the dynamics, the different personalities. But I saw something really cool being a music person. And we have a really nice music scene here. It's like we're blessed. I mean, it's for a little town somehow. We have like diversity in terms of music. And it's also theater, which is coming back now, obviously COVID. But yeah. I went to go meet Dig Dale. That was the guitarist. Almost was beaten up by the line because he came 2 hours late, and then he started talking to me. And he was inviting me over to his house by the end, but people were waiting. He's like a surf guitarist, if you're not into that type of thing. But I saw some kids behind me. They were like in high school kids, and I'm just thinking, wow, it's really cool they're into this.
Yeah, I agree with you. I love seeing that. And you're right. Good music is good music, and it brings people together of all different ages and backgrounds. And yeah, it's neat to see that.
It's true, because I mean, we don't talk politics on this show. We want people to enjoy it, have fun. But when you get out, like you have all the arguing online, everything. But I've known people, they're different political views, get out to a music show, they're great pals. It brings you together.
Absolutely. Yeah.
That's what I love about it. And the other thing about this show is we always say, go support your artists, but go what you like, but go see somebody you never heard of before. It might not be, you might like them.
I love that. That's so helpful to people like me and so many of my friends and peers. And yeah, because there's so much out there. So you're right. Try something new. Don't just stick.
But I have to give you my friend Paul. He does this. He would have loved the John Prine stuff when we talked to, but he's busy this week. But I'll give you the one now. This may or may not be true. Okay, it's nothing big. It's the story he always tells. John Lennon was asked one time if Ringo was the best drummer in rock. John said, Ringo's not even the best drummer in the Beatles. Now, it might be apocryphal, it might be, but it's just so John, isn't it?
That is so funny. I love John. He's my favorite Beatle. And I just remember my dad playing, all the records when I was a kid in Syracuse, and just, what song I loved as a little kid, Strawberry Fields.
My favorite song of the Beatles. It is my favorite song.
And I do that in the show, and you might know this. I'm sure diehard fans do, but I did a lot of research, and I learned so much about.
It's an orphanage.
Yeah, about the origins of that song, and obviously John's childhood was, he had a lot of traumatic,
His
sad stuff.
mother and everything.
Yeah, and it's so amazing how it informed his work and his song Julia, which is for
Oh,
his
his mom.
mother. And I didn't really know all of that before I put the show together.
Isn't it
So
amazing though too? You can take that's what artists do. Think too. I think Van Gogh did it too. Where you take miserable experiences, you make something beautiful. Like Strawberry Field is easily my favorite. I mean, I'm not big on those top tens, all that stuff. Except
yeah.
like your show for the snow was in the top five, but Strawberry Field is my favorite Beatles song.
I think it's mine as well. It's such a powerful song, and you're right. You take all that stuff and you channel it, and then you touch so many people,
And if you heard, like, I love behind the scenes things, like for the anthology, hearing how they put it together was
Yes,
really cool.
yes.
And
And
I
I
could give you,
think,
yeah, go on.
and I just, and another aspect was, Lennon and John and Paul's their competitive nature. I think when John wrote Strawberry Fields, I mean, I read an interview where Paul just, when they all sat around, first listened to it, listened to John play it, he just said, that's brilliant, and then a little bit after that, he came back and answered with Penny Lane. And I think they were friends, but they were competitive, and I think that made them such a good songwriting team.
I saw Paul at Giant Stadium, and there was a moment where he sits down at the piano, he goes, "This is for a dear friend." He played Strawberry Fields.
Oh, that's so cool. Wow, I love that. That's amazing. I have chills. Yeah, it's such an interesting, I don't know, and there's so much information out there about the two of them and their history and their friendship and their ups and their downs, that it was really fun because I didn't want to just, it's the Beatles and everybody knows the Beatles and the songs have been done millions of times. So I tried my best to find ways in that might not be the most obvious, interpretations or just stories to kind of illuminate the
I have
material in
one
a
more
way that,
Beatles story for you. You might find
yeah.
amusing. My brother worked for Elektra Records for a while, but he knew people in New York City. And there's somebody, like one of his friends lived there. He saw John Lennon just walking down the street, right? So he actually had him sign something. He had him sign something, right? He didn't look at it. He gets home and looks at it. He signed it Paul McCartney. And I think
Oh my
that's
goodness.
John. And I think from what I've heard, and John was always my favorite, but I have to admit, over the years, and I think it's like my friends Maybird, Michaela, there's some young artists there, I've gotten a lot into George.
Yeah, yeah. He was
Not saying
amazing.
John wasn't, I still love all, but something about George, I just like his like puckish nature, the way he's like, his positivity and everything, and all the different things he does. Monty Python stuff too, obviously.
Right. No, I totally see why, he was a special guy and such a huge part and contributed some incredible songs that I couldn't do, because I kept it strictly John Lennon, Paul McCartney. But yeah, he
You
was
could do your
amazing.
own. One day, maybe you can just do the songs of George Harrison.
Maybe so. That's another
And that's the
idea.
thing I think as an artist too, like with you, you seem like I said, there are no limits. You take on some people I would never go near. And you do a
Well,
really good job
thanks.
with well you do though. It's not like you're picking some people like well I'm again biased too, not with the Beatles, but I am like a huge Tom Waits fan and I wouldn't go near some of those.
And that was I had my director for that show, she was amazing because I only knew a few of Tom Waits songs, and her then boyfriend, now husband, said you should do a whole show of Tom Waits. And then once he said that, she became so excited. And yeah, they really pushed me to do that, and my dad was so excited by the idea. And then the more I discovered about him, I was just blown away
Okay,
by it.
honesty, there's some artists, I would put Leonard Cohen in the same category. I would say Nick Cave, too, a little bit. The
Yeah.
Voice. How were you on The Voice for his voice when you first heard him? Did you like
Well, it's an adjustment, and I mean,
I'll
I
say. But I always told people, my mom would listen to it, And she'd just go, "What are you listening to?" And I would say, okay, people who just have never gotten into him before, listen to some of his like Blood Money, Alice, because it's not as gruff as, and I would probably say for me, for Waits, my favorite song is Tom Trobert's Blues.
Oh yeah,
what but it's one of the saddest songs ever. But I can get that. Like some people, you just might not get. Like for a while, and again, politics aside, I've heard he's a bit of a nut. Van Morrison. For a long time, I just couldn't get the voice, but then now I really like his music.
I feel the same, and I love Tom's voice. I love his approach, but his whole persona is like, it's almost like silly. It's like he makes a joke of himself, which I think is his aim, is his shtick.
He does. There's like legit stuff too. He used to break into cars to steal cigarettes because he was so poor. He learned like Night Hawks at the Diner was all. He worked at an all-night pizza place. He saw these characters, and from working at a bar in a music district, I could relate. He would see all these characters come in after hours and write songs about him.
Totally, and I agree, and I just love him. I think some of his songs are, I just think they're the best ever. And that's my humble opinion.
No, that's mine too. I'm just telling. I've looked at people like that, they're poets. And
yeah.
I love that. You've done Alice and stuff. I love that album.
I love Alice. It's so haunting and so raw and just, wow. It's amazing. And I do the Day After Tomorrow, about the soldier writing home, wanting to come home. And it's such what I love about his stuff is it's just written so simple. Like it's just so simple. It just paints such a clear picture.
You seem like you go also for people that their songs are little stories.
Yes.
Like I've heard, I always remember, it sticks out in my head in terms of your show. You would like talk about them and then sing. I always remember Old 55. And it's simple, but there's a feeling. The sun's coming up by writing Lady Luck, or The Heart of Saturday Night.
And the woman that directed that show, my friend Lauren Fox, was so, she just said to me, if there's ever a show where you can really go there and bring up all this, the darkness in you and the sensitivity and pain, it's this show. Because you're right, even songs like Old 55, there's kind of a melancholic feeling underneath them,
like For Sore Eyes, which I used to play every New Year's Eve, and it's like talking about old friends who aren't around anymore. Well, some people, like Thelma and Georgina, they still come around. All the old gangs left town.
Yeah.
There's one guy in jail doing a nickel for robbery because a car crash or robbery, those type of, and working at bars again, like you see these kind of people. You go, oh, I know that character.
Absolutely. Yeah, there's just so much there.
But he's funny too. You think like in terms of like Swordfish Trombones was, I think, a lot of take on Captain Beefheart's Trout Mask Replica, like The Neighborhood, but also the one you have to play it every year for Valentine. Postcard from a Hooker in Minneapolis.
Oh yeah.
And you don't get to the end.
Another show, a totally different show, I use that. That is such a great song. And again, funny, but also it's sad. And there's just so much going on.
It's like to me, it's like sort of Leaving Las Vegas, where the people are, you think about it in a way, they're kind of pathetic, but it's like a beautiful love story.
Totally.
And that's like bittersweet. And I was telling my friend Adriana and my friend Katie about, well, you write bittersweet songs, all you sort of depressing, but, and we try to be upbeat, but those are the fun songs,
Yeah.
And I remember seeing your show, because Tom Cohen's a good friend of mine, and I know people said, it's got to be good. I'm going, oh, she's covering Tom Waits, though. Oh, she's brave. So then I went down, and I'm like, wow, this is really good. This is awesome. And the crowd loved it, too.
Thank you so much. And that's what I love, because when I first did the show here in New York City, it was such a departure for a lot of these regular cabaret folk that would come to these shows. Like, they're used to just hearing standards or jazz music, which is fun, which is great. But what I loved is even people that didn't know Tom Waits at all, really seem to connect to the material. And that's the coolest part, even when
And you
someone
do sort of
doesn't
have a
know,
more accessible voice than them, so that might help some people who've never heard them. Just a
maybe a
little
little,
bit, just a little bit. You're not
just
like
a
croaking out
little.
the words. But my
Yeah.
good friends in theater, what they've done, and as I said, theater is going to come back. My friend Mario would do it. That we have a place called Muck MUCC. They did a lot of shows, and I'm sure they'll do it again, where they took bands or music and they would do a story to them, like Vanessa
Mm,
Carlton, Bruce Springsteen, My Chemical Romance.
yeah.
And they would do like come up like with a vampire story for My Chemical Romance, and they would interpret the songs. But has Tom Waits ever given you any feedback on this? I have to ask.
No, no.
He's
And
sort of like a quiet, like gentleman farmer dude now.
totally. I wrote
Yes.
him a letter. I sent him a copy of because I have an album, a live
Yes,
album
yes.
from the show. But no, I never heard from Tom Waits. I maybe someday I would love to meet him.
I just know
I don't
Vanessa
know.
Carlton, I guess, reached out to Mario and them about that, about the show. She liked it.
Did she? That is so cool. I
It's like,
love
and now
that.
also,
Wow.
you really are not afraid of tackling icons because you did a Marilyn Monroe thing. Could you tell us a little about that? Unless it
Sure.
was somebody other Marilyn, I just remember reading about it. It's like, she is
No.
Marilyn Monroe, right?
And that's, and what's funny is, yeah, the Marilyn Monroe show, I did, the woman that directed that show for me, and that was really, I think, more of like a legit theater piece. It really was not, conventional cabaret, if you will, at all. And I think the Tom Waits show was kind of bordered on theater piece too, because it wasn't, some of the spoken word in the
If I
Tom Waits
remember,
show
it's been a
were Tom's
while.
words.
I remember you would talk and tell stories, and like that you would like sort of talk, and then you would get into the song.
Then go into his voice. Yeah. So the Marilyn show was, yeah, it was sort of like we used songs from all over. That was sort of like almost like a diary into her inner life, but we used songs from Nine Inch Nails, Tom Waits, Sia, Cole Porter, Jessie J, the pop icon Jessie J, all over the place. Alanis Morissette, and interwove those songs with Marilyn's own words. And that was really cool. We used The Piano Has Been Drinking in the Marilyn show.
The piano has been drinking.
It wasn't like an imitation. There was no blonde wig. It wasn't all
Oh,
like,
happy birthday,
sexy
Mr.
Marilyn.
President.
No,
that type of
it kind
thing.
of was. It went into her, kind of her demons, her inner self. So
I think
that was fun.
also, like that, I've always used the term Duke Ellington uses. There's only two types of music: good music and bad music. And I don't know if it was like this for you, but like in high school, you had to be the metalhead or the alternative or the punk, and then you could escape it. You could, you would find out. Wait a second, he's an Iron Maiden fan, but I saw he had a Sting album. And it would go all the way around the school. They'd be looking at you like, what are you doing?
Right.
No, but we would always be like the kind of people. We had a place called Lakeshore Record Exchange. You get like, in these days, remember, cost a little less. But we were that album stacked like this. You might have Metallica on top and Hank Williams on the bottom. And the Zombies in between.
Yeah.
But in high school, you always sort of got put into those groups where you were like...
I know, and you were self-conscious about it. I know. No, and I guess looking back, I've always kind of liked so many different things, which like you said, good music is good music.
Well, your parents, they encouraged this, didn't they?
Yeah, my dad, I always thought my dad played great music in the house as a kid. A lot of Beatles, John Prine, Van Morrison. And then it was cool because then around the corner at my grandma and grandpa, it was more, Frank Sinatra, Ella Fitzgerald, Billie Holiday. So it was a neat combination.
Yeah, well, I grew up in a Lawrence Welk household.
Oh, yeah.
It survived. But I think one of the common threads with all the musicians that I know, it seems, either their family are musicians or you have to encourage, and I think you do, especially because, you're a vocalist, but you have to buy equipment or instruments and encourage it. And it's also, as a career path, it's very brave because it's not like, okay, sign up. I'm a musician. I'm going to make a weekly wage.
Totally. And I've been very lucky. My family's always, they just know how much joy it brings me.
And it does.
And
You have I say this about the people. Some people might have a great voice, but they don't have. And all the great artists, and you have this, you have a feel for it. You really do, and you can tell you love it. But when you make a song your own, I don't hear Tom Waits' gravelly voice like when I hear your voice.
well, that really means the world to me. And
It would have been interesting if you had Tom Waits' voice when I saw you. Like, wow, she can imitate Tom Waits. Oh, she's going to get a sore throat. And then she smoked like a carton of cigarettes before she started playing.
Totally. But I think that's why it's successful, because you don't try to sound like anybody
No,
but
that's
yourself.
what I tell people here. And that's what the beautiful thing about local bands and like these younger kids, they suck in everything they've heard and they like their families get them into it. But one of the best Tom Waits stories I have is I used to live in Alexandria, but I came home. I guess Tom Waits was playing the Auditorium Theater. I didn't get to see him. But he was staying at the Strath Allen, right? So this is like a big hotel if you don't know Rochester. So I figured, okay, this is like the party, man. I'm going to go look for him. So I went to go look in the bar and stuff. He wasn't there. I guess he went to bed. And the story goes back to the Pogues. He was in Ireland. And Shane MacGowan and all of them going, the party master, we got to find him. I guess he went to bed by 9. He's like a mellow dude. He might drink wine, but he's just like since he married Kathleen Brennan, he's like a farmer. He might look like some guy on, might find that street corner.
Totally. No, and I read, he said Kathleen saved my life. I think Kathleen really kind of reeled him in.
Or you ever hear the Rod Stewart quote about, Tom owes me his pool from when I covered Downtown Train?
Oh, yeah, I did hear that. There's such funny stories.
But have you done any acting per se, like in anything? Or you're doing a little bit in your spoken word. I would say that's theater a little bit, but any acting?
Yeah. No, I'm trying to, I have done some. I did something kind of silly here, which got me my equity card. It wasn't.
You want to talk about it or not?
Sure. You know what? It was a spoof. It was a musical spoof, and I hate to say it because we're not supposed to talk about politics, but it was.
Well, you can. We're fine about everything. It's just we don't do. I don't want to.
No, it was about Donald Trump. It was about Donald Trump, and I played. Of all people, I played Marla Maples, Donald Trump's second wife. And I got my equity card doing this. And the woman that played Melania was Gina Gershon, who starred in Showgirls.
Go!
What a gap.
I can't, I figure on my Facebook feed sometimes I will get these insane right-wing magazine ads, and I'm like, what did I write? You get these things
I know.
You're like, how are these popping up? Because I do write a lot of satirical stuff, and my friends know I'm kidding, but you get these weird. These weird.
Yeah,
I got one for a Donald Trump doll.
Oh no, Donald Trump doll.
There's a Donald Trump doll.
Oh God.
But that's hilarious, like Marilyn Maple.
Yeah, of all things. So, but I am always kind of on the lookout. I'd like to hit more auditions. I do have an agent that submits me for film and TV, and I've had some big auditions, haven't gotten any of them, but I'm constantly kind of, trying to put more focus into that. And I did just get to do some background work on the Marvelous Mrs. Maisel.
Oh, my friends love that show. They love it. I have
not, believe it or not,
I have not watched it yet. I have not.
And everybody loves it. And I was just a couple weeks ago, the episode I was in came on, and I was so happy because it was 2 or 3 12-hour days. It was unbelievable. We had to be there at 5 a.m. shooting the same scene hundreds of times. I got to be in with all the principal actors, watching them work. But luckily you could see me, which was a great reward, because I thought, what if you'll just see my elbow or something after all this? So
I think there's been more than one sitcom like where the characters in something like that. So they bring all their friends over, and then they find out they cut their part out.
Yeah. So I thought, what if, I betcha, but I was visible, and the hair lady was, it's all 1950s, so the hair and wardrobe was unbelievable.
My tastes go all over the place. It's just I'm necessarily not into Main Street stuff. But like I was watching Heels, which is about a small town pro wrestling thing. Then I was watching Midsummer Murders, like because I love like so many BBC things and PBS things. So if it's good, if it's something in, and I think you get to the point where you've seen so much stuff before, you just want something different and good and well written.
Totally.
I'll be looking for you though with that.
Yes, I think it's episode 4, season. Oh no, I don't know. It's season 4. You'll see me. You might have to keep stopping and rewinding, but it was fun though. It was really cool.
We'll play a game about that with friends and say, okay, who spots Marissa first gets like a cheese ball or something like that.
Totally. That sounds like a really fun game.
That would be really cool. But you would be good probably. Here I'm sounding like an agent or something. You ever try any voice acting?
A little bit. It's hard. It's really hard to.
I have heard this from people I know who do it. It's really.
I mean, I've done probably 50 or 60 auditions. I haven't gotten any one of them, but I was working with an agent for a while, but I took a class and I learned so much, and I should really put more energy into that though.
I think you have no limits. Like as an artist, you do what you're going to do, and I think what happens is it's natural. You flow where you're going to flow, and it sounds like to me you don't really make these projects up on the fly. You just something sounds interesting and you do it.
Yeah, I do, and it just. I always, it's, as you know, it's a really hard business, but if you're focusing on, I always just try to focus on what I connect to, what excites me.
See, that's it. And people can feel the passion. I've said to some friends when they played, you really like doing this. And the audience can feel that for people. But I wanted to ask, because we don't have my co-host Greg here. He has some things going on. We've had Tom Waits tribute shows here, and he's a drummer. And we were just talking about the challenges of actually playing his music. It's like in terms of drums, and I'm an amateur. I wish he was here, but unfortunately can't be. We wish him the best. That trying to play it he would say it was like a Tin Pan Alley beat. It was really tough. So in terms of you musicians, how did you work with them before? Did you just recruit them? And were they daunted by having to read Tom Waits?
Well, no, I didn't have a drummer. I had piano, bass, and guitar, but I
heard a drummer in my head at the show. It was probably the snow bouncing around.
It was probably the snow, but no, my pianist, John Weber, he is an incredible jazz pianist, but also he goes so much farther beyond that, because he just really, I don't even think he knew a lot about Tom Waits, but he just totally just immersed himself in it, was loving it, was loving the challenge of doing something like this. And just, I think what made him so great was because so many of the songs are such great stories. He's such a sensitive accompanist, and he really follows the singer, and he just added so many colors and nuance to Tom's stuff. And
I think that's the mark of true artists too, where the question's not why, it's why not. If you're not afraid of failing and trying new things, I think everything's up. And I apologize beforehand for this one though, but why doesn't Tom Waits stand in line? Because Tom waits for no one. Sorry.
Oh, that's
you want to turn this off now? You can.
I do have.
Okay,
one
here's Pat.
Sorry.
Yeah, sure,
I'll pop in for just a second. Hi. Hello.
Hi.
I love Tom Waits, and I always had this joke I used to tell that one of my life goals was to play the pots and pans in Tom Waits' band.
Swordfish trombone.
Yeah, exactly.
especially.
Just like it just so much crazy percussion, but it also
Oh my gosh. Well, no, I love that. And you know, I just was thinking like as far as the accompaniment, I mean, there is, like you said, there is so much Tin Pan Alley aspect to it. There's so much jazz in it. I mean, you know, so I think my pianist John was, I mean, he really found a lot of moments to shine too in that
You
material.
know the story of Mule Variations? Tom just went out and he recorded it in a barn.
I didn't know
Yeah, that's
that.
what he. I swear you could hear like chickens clucking in the back with some
Oh
songs.
my goodness. Well, what an original, you know.
Yeah. Now we'll talk about the other thing coming up for you now is John Prine. How did you come to decide you wanted to do a John Prine show?
Well, so that was John Weber, my frequent accompanist. He just kept saying you should do a whole show. Like he was really encouraging me, and I had sang hello in there a lot over the years, which I love, and I knew a couple of the songs, and then I just said, you know what, you're right, let's do it. And so it was the pandemic, and there wasn't much going on, and I just sort of did a deep dive into the stuff, and of course, John Prine, sadly
He passed away yeah.
from COVID, and that kind of like brought the idea back, and yeah, I just loved doing.
And he's
doing
loved
this show.
here. Everybody loves him here.
And what an amazing man! Like what a humble, like funny, self-deprecating. Like I just couldn't believe, his story. Writing some of those like these iconic
and
songs
he's funny too. That's the thing.
While working as a mailman. I mean, he's writing songs like Hello in There when he's 22. He's writing Sam Stone on his mail route in Chicago. It's pretty amazing.
I wonder if he had, I know a lot of friends do this now who are really sorry. They bring like pencils or like putting the phone so they can put the lyrics. Remember the day, can you imagine like getting a piece of mail from John Prine? He wrote the lyrics down, then forgot and gave you your mail and it was on your mail.
I know. Wouldn't that have been crazy? But
it is. Creative people create. That's the thing. You got the bug. It's got to come out.
Totally. And I love him too because, yeah, he has so many kind of gut-wrenching, haunting, beautiful ballads, but so much funny material too. So it just made for a really fun, great evening. And it just felt like a great time to do it since we just lost him. And I don't know. I love doing it. So I'll be doing it in St. Louis at the end of April and in Minneapolis at this club called Crooners. I'm really excited. So, and I'll be doing the Tom Waits show.
My friend does, one of my friends used to do In Spite of It All, right? With his wife. But they would always change the line. I don't know if it's crime movies or they'd change it to vampire movies.
I love that. I did that in my show and sang
You're going to say vampire movies now after I said this is going to stick in your head.
Maybe I'll steal that. That's good. So,
That's
but no.
Cool. So this is coming up later April. And you have right now, I have your Tom Waits CD. I know you have 3 CDs, albums, whatever you want to call them these days out.
I do. Yeah, the first is called Illusions. The second is Tom and His Words. And then the third is 2 Tickets Left, my only studio album to date. So.
Oh, we will be more.
There will be more. Just gotta like save my pennies and make some more albums,
But that's okay. That's what's ahead for you. Then you're just doing all these, and of course you'll have new project, I'm sure. That's the beauty of this. I love is like for you just to see what you're gonna do next. It's always like, what's she doing next? What's she doing next? There we go.
Yeah.
Maybe you'll do like all the like cartoon jingles or something. You never know with you.
I don't know what'll be next, but
that's
you're
the
right.
best part, isn't it?
It is the best part. It's exciting, and so. Yeah, I'll be in St. Louis 2 nights doing John Prine and then heading to Minneapolis. And that I'm really excited about because I'll do 1 night Tom Waits and the next night John Prine, which is so cool. And then Syracuse in May and then a couple things over the summer. And, it goes like that. Sometimes there's a lot and then nothing.
Oh, yes.
But that's just the nature of the beast, and you got to just ride the wave and just stay creative.
That's awesome. It's been great. I'm so glad we had you on, and thanks for taking the time with us.
I'm so glad to be here. Thank you.
Now, we're going to play. Just tell us all what we can. I know you have a website.
Yeah.
Everything else, we can find out where you're going. Just tell us.
Sure. Yeah, everything's on my website, marissamulder.com. I also post, I'm on Facebook and Instagram. You can find me pretty easily. I have a lot of things up on YouTube just by searching my name. And yeah, I'm on Spotify.
Make sure we spell it right. It's with an Mulder, because I'm like so bad, and I was thinking Fox Mulder from the. You got it. You read my mind. You read my mind.
That's the easiest way for nerds to remember.
Yes, but we're going to play. We like to play a song at the end, and you send us Jersey Girl. And I have to say and be proud. I like Bruce Springsteen, but Tom Waits never covered one of his songs. Bruce Springsteen covered a Tom Waits song. Haha.
That's right. That's right.
But why did you pick that one? Just is it a favorite, or you just said, random?
Well, it just seemed to fit well into the evening. And also there's a very funny story to preface it, because in the 80s, Tom was doing a radio interview, and the interviewer asked him specifically how he felt about Bruce Springsteen and Bruce's growing fame and popularity. And Tom just said to the interviewer, "I've done all I can for Bruce. And he's on his own now."
He's like, his quips are just the best. He's like one of those natural wits where he just...
Yeah, and I think it's just so funny because I think so many people think Bruce Springsteen wrote Jersey Girl,
I'm sure. How many people go up to a lot of people and say, "I really like that Rod Stewart song, Downtown Train."
Same thing. Or the Eagles with Old 55. And that's the amazing thing about Tom. He just was so under the radar. Yeah, some of his biggest hits were recorded by other artists.
Yeah, because I think Rain Dogs was his most popular album, and I think it only sold around 250, 300,000 copies. But could you imagine? I'd be in a band going, "I'm not going to write anything. Let's see what he wrote next, and we'll do covers of it. They're that good."
Totally.
Hayes Carroll does a really good version of "I Don't Want to Grow Up." You could go on. There could be albums, a whole store of albums of people doing covers. Tori Amos did "Time."
Oh, I love her cover.
Oh, wasn't it incredible? And the thing was, I had not heard that song before. I had her album, and it's the one where she covers all male artists. And I always forget titles, so whatever. But yeah. I'm listening to it going, I don't have to guess who did this. It's a Tom Waits song.
I know, and I love that. Just so many artists do so well with his stuff, which is such a testament to his writing, So
very cool. But thank you so much for being on, and we'll get that on at the end. So everybody stay around.
Thank you
and
so
hopefully
much.
We'll see you back here sometime down the line.
I would love that. Thanks for having me. This was
thanks.
So
it was
fun.
a pleasure.
Got no time for the corner boys down in the street making all that noise. Don't want no whores on 8th Avenue, 'cause tonight I'm gonna be with you. 'Cause tonight I'm gonna take that ride across the river to the Jersey side. Take my baby to the carnival, and I'll take you on all the rides. 'Cause down the shore everything's alright. You with your baby on a Saturday night. Don't you know all my dreams come true when I'm walking down the street with you? Sing, shout, Sha-la-la-la, I'm in love with a Jersey girl. Sing sha-la-la-la-la, sha-la-la-la-la-la-la, sha-la-la, sha-la-la-la-la, sha-la-la-la-la-la. You know she thrills me with all her charms. When I'm wrapped up in my baby's arms, my little angel gives me everything. I know someday that she'll wear my ring. So don't bother me, 'cause I got no time. I'm on my way to see that girl of mine. Nothing else matters in this whole wide world when you're in love with a Jersey girl. Sing sha-la-la-la-la, sha-la-la-la-la-la-la, sha-la-la, sha-la-la-la-la, sha-la-la-la-la-la. And I call your name. I can't sleep at night. Sing sha-la-la-la-la, sha-la-la-la-la-la-la, sha-la-la, sha-la-la-la-la, sha-la-la-la-la-la. And I call your name. I can't sleep at night.
We are the Architects of Entropy, a collaborative world-building tabletop role-playing actual play podcast. In other words, my friends and I create exciting, weird worlds and then we play in them. Join us for our introductory story as we play Dungeons and Dragons in a homebrew high fantasy world populated with dwarves, elves, fairies, and anthropomorphic weasels. What's going to happen next? We have no idea. Join us and find out. Architects of Entropy, a podcast.